2017-2018, class number 28. Alrighty, so I apologize. We've been offline for 2 weeks due to Memorial Day and Shavuos. So hopefully Shavuos we learned anyway. Hopefully Shavuos we'll learn anyway. Hold on a second. It seems that there's a issue with it. There we go. Okay, so Shavuos hopefully we're learning anyway, but we are now we are at the end of Parshas Bereishis. It's quite exciting. So page 27, chapter 6, verse number 1. Right, we ended off last time going through the 10 generations from Adam till Noach. Right, and then at the end of chapter 5, Noach is born. Okay, and it's actually interesting. You'll note that how many generations are there between Adam and Noach? 10. Good. Okay, good. Excellent. Good. How many generations between Noach and Abraham? 10. Right? And so you actually have 10 and 10, right? Because actually the world, right, when the world was created, so then the people in the world said, what are we? Are we spiritual or are we physical beings? Right? Because on one hand we're physical, on the other hand we're spiritual. And then they said, well, what should we focus on, the spiritual or the physical? And so the first 10 generations, they went and they focused on the physical. And that culminates now with the story of Noah and the flood. The next 10 generations says, whoops, we guess we got that wrong. If we're not physical, we're only spiritual. And so what did they do? So they went ahead and they focused only on the spiritual. And where did that end up? Wrong. The Tower of Babel. Okay? And so then along comes Abraham, right? He's going to come along at the end of Parshas Noach, and Abraham's going to say, you're making a mistake. We're physical and we're spiritual, and our job is to take the physical and infuse it with spirituality. Right? To bring the two together. Right? Take something physical and to infuse it with spirituality and to create this spiritual, this physical entity that really is a spiritual, really is a spiritual concept. Right? It's therefore to marry the two together. Right? We take a cup of water and what do we say? Make a blessing on it. When we make the blessing, what do? We infuse it with holiness. And then we could drink it. And then we make it holy. And so that's really our job, is to take the physical and to infuse it with spiritual. And therefore you'll see in Judaism, everything physical can be infused with spirituality. And that's the job of the Jews as we travel through life, is to go ahead and to take all these things and to spiritually infuse what's the physical world around us. Okay? And that's why, because there are 10 spiritual worlds and there are 10 physical worlds. So what happened was, so now the world just finished destroying all the 10 physical worlds that exist. And now, then from here on out, from Noah, after Noah, the world's going to go and destroy the 10 spiritual worlds, the spiritual levels. Okay? That's what takes place. Yeah.
We come to travel through life.
Yeah.
As you said it. And we all know that someday we're all going to die.
Right.
Your parents die, everybody dies.
Mm-hmm.
So why do we get mad? Why do we get sad? Why do we have feelings?
Why do you have feelings? Well, you have feelings is because you're supposed to take these. You're supposed, as you go through life and as you travel through life, right? Our goal, right? So as human beings, we have feelings. But what is supposed to run our feelings? Do our feelings control us, or do we control our feelings?
We control it.
We have some control over feelings.
Okay, so it's very interesting. Right? People think, well, if I'll be happy, right? Then I'm happy. Let me ask you a question. Who decides whether you're happy or not?
I do.
Right? You decide yourself whether you're going to be happy. Right? You decide whether you're going to be sad. You decide whether you're going to be calm. You decide whether you're going to be annoyed. Right? So really we control our feelings. Feelings are things that most people tend to think that we go ahead and that the feelings control who we are, when in essence, it's we control our feelings. right? And it's a very, very important thing to understand. So we have feelings, and we're supposed to use them, right, in the pursuit of godliness, right? So what is supposed to make us happy?
Moments make us happy.
What?
Moments.
Really, not moments. Actually, you can have that, but actually, you should really learn to live in a state of happiness. How about that?
Very hard.
It's
With
not.
a lot
It's,
of alcohol.
you know why alcohol makes people happy? Then I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why people get drunk. And you know why? Because they're in so much pain, and so they figure if they drink,
They anesthetize.
they anesthetize the pain, and hence they think they're happy. Man, how can you be happy when you lose your mind? Right? Which is what, when somebody gets drunk, that's what happens. Right? So it's really not that way, right? Really, right? And that's the way that most of the world lives in. We live in a world that there's so much pain that most people are just in pain, and they go through life is to avoid the pain that they're in. Okay, right? That's how most of the world lives. And what does the Torah say? It say you're missing the point. You're missing the boat, right? We're supposed to be in a state of happiness all the time, and if we're not, there's a big problem, right? And so, what should bring us happiness?
Doing mitzvahs.
Doing mitzvahs. Why do doing mitzvahs make us happy?
We're doing because we're becoming more godly.
Oh, so right. So it's connecting with God, right? Because remember, we are here in this world, right? We were put here in this world in order to do what? In order to connect to God. That's why we're here, right? So as long as we're doing our mission, then we should be happy. Right? The problem is we get caught up in this world that our brains get off centered, and we miss, right? And we forget our mission. And then we start running this rat race that somebody else keeps on telling us. Right? There's a billion or probably quite billion dollar industry called advertisement, right? That's meant to tell you what will make you happy. Isn't that amazing? People are trying to control your minds to decide to tell you what will make you happy. Isn't that the most amazing thing? It's truly amazing. And why is that? Because you get off track of what really the world is all about. And what our job in this world is really to do. Right? And if we don't do that, and then we're going to be miserable. So our job is to learn to not to be miserable. Right? And just, right? And to learn to be happy. How do we learn to be happy? By focusing on, am I doing what God wants right now at this moment? If the answer is yes, then this is a moment of happiness.
So you mean we have to learn to be happy?
Yes, sure. If you don't learn to be happy, you'll be miserable your entire life.
So how do you learn?
How do you learn? He's okay, hang around the rabbi and he'll hopefully teach you. Yeah, but that's all right, because what decides whether you're happy? Right? Now, it's in a nice, cool room, thank God. Oh, amazing. And it's only like 110 outside. I forgot it's already 7 o'clock, so that's only 109. A nice cool room, and you're getting to learn Torah. And every second you learn Torah, you're creating these worlds of spirituality. You know how many mitzvahs you get for every word of Torah you study?
613.
You get 48 mitzvahs for every word of Torah you study.
How do you come up with that number?
And go through the mitzvahs and see which ones you can get while you're learning Torah.
Okay.
Okay? And now, it's interesting. How many words do you generally speak a minute? It's around 200. So 200...
Let me ask something. Let's say I walk outside and I rob somebody.
Right.
And I come back right inside and study Torah. Am I winning or losing?
You're winning and losing. You're doing both. Right? But so for every word, for every minute of Torah study you learn, you get 9,600 mitzvahs.
I need them.
Not bad, right? Not bad, right? So you should be the most. You should be like floating on cloud 9, right? Just for every mitzvah of Torah you study.
So one has some credits to show.
Yeah. So that's what you get. So by coming and studying, right? So appreciate the moment, right? So this is the greatest moment. Does life get any better than this? 9,600 mitzvahs a minute. You know what that is? You know, I forget how many words you speak a minute. They say 200, but when you start doing like the WhatsApp and you have to leave like a long message, you think is a long message. And by the time you're done, it's been like 4 seconds. Right? It's the most incredible thing. But in fact, if you go through life and you recognize and you can't try to focus that every moment of time you're doing what God wants you to do, is that a winning moment or a losing moment? Winning. Is that a happy moment or a sad moment?
Happy.
So let's say God decides that the air conditioning should break and you sit in a hot, sweltering room. It's 95 degrees inside in the shade.
Happy.
Thank you, God, for turning the air conditioner on. Right? So are you miserable? Yes. Are you happy?
Yes.
Yes, of course you are, because you're still getting 9,600 mitzvahs. But now you're getting a multiplier. Because not only do you get your 9,600 mitzvahs a minute for studying Torah, right? Now you're miserable and you're still studying Torah. So now, right, according to the pain is the reward. So now you have even more opportunities. Right? So it brings you even closer to God, faster than you thought. So are you happy or you're sad? Happy. It's amazing.
So we should sit here and hope the air conditioner goes out.
Yeah, right. Not in my house, in your house. Right, but what's the idea? The idea is that if you're able to put into context every moment of your life and understand why you're doing what you're doing, and if you're doing God's will, then every moment in time is infinity. Every moment in time is right. You're achieving eternity. And how could you not be happy? You following, right? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Right? So we as Jews, we live this world in a state of incredible happiness and bliss. Most incredible thing.
Or the opportunity for happiness and bliss.
No.
If I don't see it,
right.
I don't feel it.
Okay, correct. And now comes the challenge. Because you don't see it, you don't understand how it fits into God's plan. Mm-hmm. But you do understand that God runs the world and God's in control, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if God's in control and runs this world, so then absolutely the most incredible thing. Right? So now you're in His hands. But now you're really in His hands. Because when you think you understand God, are you trusting God or are you trusting in yourself?
Trusting yourself.
You're trusting yourself, you're not trusting God, right? I got enough money in the bank account, I'm okay. So they trust in the money in the bank account, they trust in myself.
Yeah.
I trust in myself. And so when you don't have the money in the bank account, yet you know you've done all you should do, so now God's in control, so all of a sudden now you really trust in God. Now you really live in a place of happiness. Right? So and why is it happening to you? Because maybe you need to learn how to trust in God that way. Right? I sometimes imagine, sometimes imagine that at the end of this world, when it's lights out and we're not coming back, and there's a void that we have to get over to heaven. And God's going to say, take a step. He said, but there are no steps here. So God says, trust me, take a step. He said, but there's no steps.
I'm stepping.
Right? You're following the dilemma you have? So if you've learned to live this world, that you understand that it's all God all the time, even when you think there's a step there, the step is not catching you, but God is catching you, so then whether you see a step or not is irrelevant. God tells you to step, you're going to make it across.
It's like in the movie, it's a leap of faith.
It's a leap, but it's not, here it's not a leap of faith. In fact, I would tell you, I would contend the other way around. I would contend you that that's real, and what we live is a world of fake. Let me ask you a question. Is the ground underneath us solid?
What?
The ground underneath us solid.
It's our illusion of solid. It's
What?
not solid. It's more space than solid.
But it looks solid, right? Everything's solid. Right? Except if you're in Florida, and all of a sudden a sinkhole opens up where you thought was solid.
Not so solid.
Not so solid anymore. right? So what you think is solid is only solid, maybe,
As long as it stays
as
there.
long as it stays that way, or as long as the figment of your imagination. Man, it looks like it's there, and it's looking like it won't go away. But again, that's all your figment of your imagination. So I would contend that God is real and everything else is fake. And you don't need to take a leap of faith, you need to take a leap of reality. And you have to leave your faith behind.
Trust.
And you following? You following where I'm coming from? Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Right? So imagine you live life like this. That God is just carrying you through life. And everything that happens to you is a gift from Hashem exactly for what you need. What happens at that point?
Means that God is in control of
Life is amazing.
You're happy.
You're happy. You're very happy. Right? And so that's really how you have to begin to learn to live life. And that you're living life with God is holding you. Does God love you?
Yes.
He loves me. Loves you. Okay, God's got enough heart to love everyone. Right? So how could life be bad? Right? Life is amazing. And God is taking us through life as we go. Right? It's a tremendous gift that we have. And that's why we could always live in a state of happiness. And because life is just like peachy. It doesn't get better than this. Right? Life is just incredible.
When you put God ahead.
What? And so
You put God ahead. Reaching about
when you live in the reality of God being there.
Yeah.
And that's our job, right? To live in that reality of God, right? To live in that space of reality, and God is reality, right? And that's what we're here for. And that's what life's about. So don't get distracted, and don't think it has anything else to do with what seems to happen, because that's not really real. What's really real is God. Everything else is fake. It's fake news.
That's a great lead-in to this next part.
Right.
Because they did exactly the opposite.
Right? Isn't that amazing? And people go out, he's learning Torah, and they say he's going out and robbing. Right? That's right. Like how do you have the two in the same sentence?
No, because I want to compare. For one avera, how many mitzvahs do you get? I mean,
So it depends what type of avera. If you steal from somebody else, it's 1. If you steal from me, it's 3.
No, I mean, I just want to say.
No. So different averas depending on how it's almost impossible to tell because
Can I scale myself? Let's say can I put myself on a scale on a daily basis?
Yes. Sure.
Don't I get depressed?
You could get
If you go
depressed.
out and rob, you will.
Then don't get on the scale every day. They tell you I'm on a diet now. The Rabbi, once a week you got to weigh yourself. I said once a week. I said I want to see instant feedback. I said no. A lot of water weight that goes and comes. It's not fair. So of course I'm smarter than the doctor. So I weighed myself every day. So 2 days into it I was down 5 pounds. 5 days into it I was almost equal to where I started, and I was being good. I was not cheating. So thank God. And when the week came and checked in, we were 5 pounds down. So that was good. Right? So at least we were getting to where we needed to be.
I want to ask a question. Over here it says Methuselah lived for 187 years. Did we have math that time? That there's numbers over here?
Sure.
People knew how to count?
Of course they did. Yeah. Let me tell you something. Don't think people in the olden days were these dumb, stupid people. People in the olden days were very smart. Right? They might not have had iPhones or Galaxies or whatever you have.
That shows you how smart they were.
That's right. That's actually right. Right? And it's actually quite fascinating.
So when Adam was Adam children were born.
Mm-hmm.
They already how you see animals when they come off, they start running, they start learning how to eat. I mean, men were like that too. I mean, they knew how to function.
No, they were babies. They're babies. That's what they were.
Somebody had to nurse them.
Yes, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Right, so you go ahead and so you have, so now you go ahead, so we go, right? So that's absolutely. And the reason why you can't, it's hard, you can make a hierarchy of commandments, you know, which ones are worse than the others. How do you tell, by the way, a hierarchy of commandments? You generally can look at what the punishment is, and then you can see the ones that have heavier consequences, right, carry more weight. Except the problem is that works well until, let's say you were created with a certain inclination. For you, keeping kosher is easy. It doesn't bother you. It's easy for you to keep. Keeping Shabbat for you is hard. Now for Mark, on the other hand, Shabbat is easy, but the kosher is hard. Right?
Yes.
So now if you both start keeping kosher, who gets more reward? Mark or you? Mark, because it's harder for Mark. Right? And so therefore, right, depending on your makeup, right, depending on your makeup is depending on whether it makes sense to go ahead and to on the reward that you'll get for it. So the bottom line is like this. Don't worry about one against the other. Your job is to collect as many as you can. Okay? Right? Pick up as many. Imagine they were all $1,000 bills. Right? And that fake dollars too. Okay? Imagine they were $1 million. Every time you did a mitzvah, you got $1 million. Anyone want to sell me their mitzvahs for $1 million? $1 million. Write your check right now. Sell me your mitzvah. We could always do another one. Right? So you sell your mitzvah for $1 million. Don't sell your mitzvahs for $1 million. That would be bad. Why? Because then you put a value onto something that's valueless. You can never get a value. Its value is infinity. It's infinity. Infinite value. Don't put a number on it. Right? You put a number on it, right? You lose it. Right? But it's incredible value. Right? That's what it is. Just tremendous amount of value. Okay. Chapter 6. Let's learn about some people who didn't figure this out. Okay. Mark. Go ahead.
And it came to pass when man began to increase upon the face of the earth, and the daughters were born to them. The sons of the rulers saw that the daughters of the men were good, and they looked themselves,
and they
took themselves wives from whomever they chose.
So what happened?
They're messing around a lot.
They're messing around a lot, but what were they doing messing around? They were just taking whatever they wanted. Did it belong to them? No. Right? So at that point in time, right, could you take something that doesn't belong to you? No. Right? And so they were taking things that didn't belong to them. Right? Okay, so what happens now? Go ahead.
And Hashem said, my spirit shall not contend evermore concerning man, since he is but flesh. His days shall be 120 years.
Oh, so what does Hashem say? We're
living too long.
Living too long.
Yeah.
What's the problem when you live too long?
You make more mistakes.
Take things for granted?
You figure I can always fix it up tomorrow.
You could always fix it up tomorrow. There's always the next day. We could always fix it up the next day. Guess what, folks?
There is no tomorrow?
Long life comes with a downside. And what's the downside? Downside is the push for change, to better oneself, to correct oneself, to become better, greater, diminishes. I'm not going to study Torah. I'm only in my first century. When I get around to the 3rd century, I'll start studying Torah.
It's very easy to become complacent.
Very, because you live for a long time. Right? Isn't that amazing? Right? You could go ahead and you could live. Right? So living a long time is not a good thing.
But if you take care of your parents, then you're blessed by a long time.
Ah.
How long is long?
It's very interesting. Right? The Torah says long life. But Torah literally means long life means in the world to come. Right? It means that your reward is very great. So what happens is, so you go ahead, right? And what happens is if you would have too much time, and you want to know where that happens. You want to see a clear life example. Alexander the Great. Anyone know how old he was when he died? 33. When he was 33, that means by the time he died, he had conquered the entire world. Can I ask you a question? When I turned 33, I was very sad. Happy, but sad. Why? I said Alexander the Great, by the time he was 33, had conquered the entire world.
And what did you accomplish?
And what did I accomplish?
You didn't bring the Mashiach.
I know.
That's why you're unhappy.
I know. Right? But what did I accomplish by the time I was 33?
But you probably accomplished what you were supposed to accomplish.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope so. Right? Again, remember that's my challenge. Right? Do you go ahead? Right? Do I accomplish everything I need to accomplish? You know, people think I'll show you with kids. Right? Kids nowadays might take a long time to grow up. Why? Because they finish school, they finish high school, they finish college, and go to graduate school. And maybe they don't like the thing they chose, so they go to a different graduate school, right? Racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars in bills, right? That's what happens. If they still don't like it, they'll choose something else, right? Am I on target here?
Business, lawyer.
Am I right? And
You got it. I know that kid.
Mate, you know that kid, yeah? Yeah, I know lots of them, right? Isn't that amazing? Right? Why? Because we just have lots of time. There's nothing pushing us. Get married when I'm 23. Get married when I'm 24, 25. You got to be kidding, Rabbi. I got to go see the world. I got to travel the world first. I got to go check out what's happening. You know, when I'm like 35, 40, then maybe I'll decide to get married. Right? And then, your wife won't be able to have a kid. Late 30s, you're beginning ready, dropping off pretty much on the. That's okay. I only want one. Maybe I have one. Maybe I'll adopt. Maybe I IVF. Right? We're going to do all these other things. Right? And the world just drags on. Alexander the Great conquered the world and was dead at 33. You know why?
Why?
Because he didn't have time.
Didn't have time?
Time was running away. I want to tell you something. Listen carefully. You ever say I have to kill some time? Ever the expression, I'm going to kill some time? Let me tell you something. Jews don't kill time. We murder time. Okay? Jews don't kill time. Jews murder time.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? It means the second that we have will never come back. This second will never be coming back. The second is gone forever. So you all of a sudden have 10 minutes that pop up. All of a sudden you have 10 minutes that you weren't planning on doing something. So what does that mean? You have an opportunity of 10 minutes of eternity. What are you going to do with those 10 minutes? I'm going to kill time waiting for the meeting to start. And we're going to use that time to go ahead and to capture some more eternity. Whose choice is it? Mine. And why are we lazy about it? Because I got another 10 minutes coming tomorrow. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Right? That's what happens.
What are you supposed to do with that 10 minutes? You're supposed to study Torah?
So let me tell you what you should do. I'll tell you about a rabbi. Rabbi used to finish the Talmud every year, every 2 years. He had a cycle. One time, so you invited somebody to come to his house for the siyum, right, for the completion. Right, big deal. And he comes, invites him, he comes as a siyum. 2 weeks later, the rabbi calls him back and says, come back, I'm making another siyum, another completion. He says, but wait a second, he just finished one 2 weeks ago. He says, no, let me explain to you. I'm running 2 different cycles at the same time. The first cycle was my normal cycle. The second cycle, that's the cycle that I use, that I study when I have an extra 10 minutes, or an extra 2 minutes, or an extra minute, an extra 30 seconds, an extra 45 seconds that I just happen to have just an extra moment. And so I quickly whip out my Talmud and I study. And all those 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 5, 45 seconds, a minute and a half, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I've strung them together and I've finished the entire Talmud.
Wow. Which rabbi is this?
I don't remember his name.
Rabbi Epstein.
I wish. Right? But that's what it is. Right? That you go ahead and you have that opportunity. Right? And nowadays it's as easy as ever. In Israel, I remember used to travel when Israel went back in the good old days, right? And there was all public transportation. And you have to go down to the bus stop. So you have to go down at least 3 minutes early, right? Because maybe the bus is going to be, your watch is right or whatever. So you at the bus stop usually at least 3 minutes before the bus comes. Then you have a bus ride. So what are you going to do on the bus ride? Right? So now you have time in the bus. Right? So we too have time.
Yeah.
Right? We should begin. I'll tell you what you can do. I'll just prove it to you. Get yourself a stopwatch. You have probably one on your phone. And every time you have a few seconds that you weren't planning on, clock it and see how much time you really have that just falls through the cracks. Right?
Yeah.
Right? And then right? We have now apps that you can download classes, right? The blink of an eye, right? You carry it around, you download it, save it in iPods, podcasts, whatever you want, right? Websites that have all Torah classes available. Just pop it in. Start it up. Keep it open. See how fast you get. See how far you get. Right? It's all opportunities. It's all about appreciating the moment. That's our job. God says people living 1,000 years is a waste of time. Not only a waste of time, it's counterproductive. Because then even the 100 years, 120 years that they're supposed to live, they can't use it for the right thing. Because they keep on thinking about plenty of time to change. I don't have to apologize to somebody today. I can always do it tomorrow. I don't have to study today because I can do that tomorrow. And not tomorrow, the next day. Not the next day, the next year. Not the next year, the next decade. Not the next decade, you got the next century. Right? Time is so valuable. And it will never come back. Every second that you have, you can use it for eternity, or you can use it to blow eternity. And it's all our choice. So God says, I've given you 1,000 years, right? Look at are they turning out good? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? No. God says, okay, so I'm forced. I have to cut back. I have to cut back time to I'll give them 120 years. And that way, hopefully, that will motivate them enough in order to get them to take life seriously. Right? And that's our job. Take life seriously. Take responsibility for our time. We live in a time when what's the goal of life? What do people think the goal is?
Making money.
Making money. And enough money so that they can retire,
and study Torah.
Wisdom is waste. What? The sad part is we only get this smart when we get older, right? And that's why, so we can retire and do what when we retire? Nothing. Yeah.
Which I hear people try to go nuts and they have to go back to work.
No. Now they forget about going nuts. I'll tell you an interesting story. It happened with my father and my uncle. So my father, thank God, was blessed. He had started a company in the early 80s when computers were first becoming widespread. Actually, I'll tell you, he actually started a scheduling and billing software. Okay, right? Everyone, right? Okay, so in the 80s, that's good, right? In the early 80s, that's when he started it. Ended up getting bought out in the 90s. In the early 90s, he retired in 95 or 96. And he said, I don't have to work anymore. He says, I could study Torah full time. So he he retired and went and he studied today. He studies Torah full time. But my uncle, also was a religious man, but not a studier like my father. So what happened was, he's one that graduated from Harvard, and went ahead, and he wanted to retire, and he's 14 years older than my father, and so my father said, you can't retire. He said, why not? He says, because people who retire and have nothing to do usually die within a year or two.
Yeah, it's true.
He says, you have to figure out what you're going to do when you retire. And somebody that's the word retired is like retire, like you have to retire the tires on your car, right? It means that right, you could go ahead, you could do something else, right? But it's study Torah, right? Do mitzvahs, right? Do something to create a relationship with God. If thank God you're able to retire and God has given that to you, right? Make sure you could go and you could use it as a way to come closer to God. Right? That's what it's all about. Right? That's how life works. It's our choice. Right? What we're able to do. Right? That's really our goal.
What did your uncle end up doing?
He actually worked until he was 80 something. They finally said you can't stay on. He was a senior scientist at ITT.
He went back to work?
My uncle, yeah.
He went back to work?
Yeah, he didn't retire. He retired. He knew my father was right.
So what did he do? He retired, actually?
No, he didn't retire till I think now he's 80, 89 now. I think he worked till 81 or 82.
Okay, so what's he doing now?
What's he doing now? He's learning. Learning Torah.
Because of your father.
Well, he used to, it was, it's interesting. He grew up in America before there were day schools. We were just at the beginning of the day school movement, and they grew up in Boston. They didn't have day school. My father was they started the day school in Boston a couple years before my father started going to school. My father was able to get a day school education, and he actually studied. He's been studying.
You know your father, right?
Yeah, he comes. Yeah. He's also a PhD electrical engineer. Right, you know what I'm saying, right? So he's not a slouch, but that's what it is, right? Is that what's the purpose in life, right? And having too much time sometimes is a drawback, right? Let me ask you a question. Let's ask you a serious question. Let's say I came and told you, the joke, two golfing buddies die, right? And the two golfing buddies, they make a deal that they're always going back and forth. Is there golf in heaven? So they make a deal that the first one to die will come back to the second one in a dream and tell them whether there's a golf in heaven. And it comes a day, and one of the guys dies, and the next night his golfing buddy He has a treatment. The guy comes back to him. His buddy comes back and says, it has good news and bad news for you. He says, what's the good news? He says, there's golf in heaven. He said, what's the bad news? He says, you tee off at 9 tomorrow. You tee off at 9 tomorrow.
You tee off at 9 tomorrow. Oh, so he's going to die before 9 tomorrow?
Yeah. So.
We tee off before 9.
Right.
Now I get it.
Okay, so now, let's say a person knew they had 5 hours left to live. What would you do those 5 hours? Would you check the market one more time?
No.
Would you...
Too late for me to start talking.
Would you go and would you kind of catch the last sitcom before you go?
No.
What would you do?
Connect with loved ones.
Connect with loved ones. And connect with God. Right? If you were real serious, you connect with God. Right? Because only in this world can you connect with God. Next world, you reap the level you're on in this world. The Vilna sister once came to visit her. He hadn't seen her in a long time. And so travel was hard in those days, and he finally met her. And he goes, I got 20 minutes. So they visit for 20 minutes, he goes back to learning. And so somebody said to him, your sister, she hasn't seen her in a long time. Like, what are you doing? He says, listen, the next world I'll have plenty of time for her. He says, I can only do mitzvahs in this world. He says, right? So we're spoiled. And we don't think in those terms. Because we have a lot of time. You know, right? We live, there's a lot of uncertainty out of our lives. Right? In the good old days, 1,000 years ago, you wouldn't know what tomorrow would bring.
Right.
Right? You know, right? Right? It was, right? You lived, it was a very precarious life. But because of that, you went ahead and you focus on what's important. Right? So God says 1,000 years is not good. Because 1,000 years means you're just going to have a lot of time that you're going to sit and twiddle your thumbs and waste your time. Right? Don't waste your time. Time is too precious to waste.
Don't watch TV is what you're saying.
I'm saying study Torah.
Study Torah.
Let's talk do mitzvahs.
Turn the TV off.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Right? Let's go ahead and let's focus on the things that really matter.
I mean, the news will survive without you.
It's amazing, isn't it? I want you to know it's an amazing thing. I used to be a news junkie.
Yeah.
Man, like if I didn't listen to the news every couple hours, I'd feel the world was falling apart. I mean, you know, you live in New York, right? They have right WINS, or right, give us 22 minutes, we'll give it a whirl. Right? You know, I was learning at Lakewood, is driving back and forth, and then when it came to Dallas, there was like no news station. It was Dottie's cooking show. That's all it was. It was like, you know, it was pre-internet. You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine that pre-internet? Right? Okay, right? It's, man, was it right? And it was a word, and I think the world's falling apart. And they finally figured out the world's going to go on. And chances are, it won't make a difference. And all it's going to do is going to save you a lot of aggravation. I had a lady come to me and said, Rabbi, she says, I'm really getting antsy with all the news that's going on. I said, great. I said, turn off your radio and turn off your TV. She says, well, what's going to happen? I said, nothing. I said, you'll feel better. I said, all you're doing is you're making yourself nervous for no reason. I said, who's in charge? She goes, God. So I said, okay, so he's got it covered. He doesn't need your help. Right? You know what I'm saying? Right? Who do you even listen to? Now, the whole thing is so nuts. Right? We don't have a lot of time. Right? And so God takes a man that was living 1,000 years and says, buddy, you're busting it. Right? Do you think you go do what you want, take who you want? Do you think that's okay? You think that's the way I created the world? That this is how you should live? He said, you're a bunch of spoiled brats. And the only thing that's going to wake you up and make you start smelling the salts and start making intelligent decisions is when you realize that you don't have a lot of time. And you have to take every moment and you have to live in the moment. And you have to grab every opportunity. Right? Because as we know in America, the good old saying, time is money. Or as we say in the Jewish version of that, time is eternity. Right? And it's our job what we get with that time that we buy. What we buy with our time. Once it's your time, you do with it what you want. But spend it wisely.
So with the time you can buy eternity?
Sure.
Just by getting closer to Hashem?
Yeah.
So I thought you once said that in the world to come, all we do is praise Hashem, right?
Right.
So if I got 5 hours to live, what's that 5 hours? If I spend my time praising Hashem, is that going to help me?
Sure.
Can't hurt.
No. Let me explain it to you.
You know, that's like me davening in mincha. You know, it takes me 5 hours.
No. So let me explain it to you. You build your relationship with God. Okay?
Yeah.
Imagine every mitzvah you do in this world, you're laying another photo optic cable in your T1 line of your connection to God. So whatever you create now, when you get to the world to come, that's going to be your connection to God. Right? You following? Right? Well, I'll do it another way. You're old enough to remember this. You remember the good old TVs that always had that fuzz on the TV?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, right. What was that fuzz called again?
Snow.
All that snow on the TV. Right. And hopefully, if you kind of like twisted the wires the right way and hooked up enough hangers, enough hangers to one to another, that you would go ahead and you could actually maybe get to see a little bit of the picture. Right? Remember the good old days?
I remember those.
Okay, good. So imagine in heaven you have one of those TV screens in front of you. And there's God. But it's filled with snow. When the mitzvahs you do down here, you're cleaning the snow and you're making the picture clear, each of those pixels. Okay? You're making it clearer and clearer and clearer. That's what you're doing. When you know you're about to go use your TV screen, how hard are you going to be scrubbing your pixels?
Really good.
Really good. Why? Because every second that you scrub a pixel here, you have, for eternity, you have a clearer picture. So if you were going out, you knew you had 5 hours to check out, what would you be doing?
Fixing my antenna.
Fixing my antenna. Fixing the pixels. Right? That's what it's about. Time is a gift. Make sure you use it properly. If you don't, it could be quite costly. And God takes a man that's supposed to be living 1,000 years and knocks it down to 120. But guess what? 120 was still too much. So what did God do?
Cut it off.
Could have chopped it down. Right? And now we're somewhere about like 85, I think, 86. Right? In America. The rest of the world, what's the rest of the world up to?
So no one,
7, what?
after 120 years, no one lived less than 120? Or
No. So it doesn't mean that everyone's going to live exactly 120. Right? And even today, somebody could potentially live past 120. I think there was a lady who was 123 who died recently. So it means that the time span is no longer going to be these monster numbers, right? Yeah, but that's what it is, right? But the goal is we got to make sure we use our time that we have. And God says you're using your time badly. Guess what? Taking it away. Right? Using it to go grab whatever they're doing. Right? They said, right, they're going ahead, they were grabbing, right, taking any ladies they wanted, any girls they wanted. God says, okay, we'll shut it down. Right? Okay.
So I got something written here in Hebrew. When our years
Yeah.
You said before something equals sheker. There's two words. One is equal to the other. I can't read my writing.
Where?
Yeah, you wrote it on the board.
It could be beged. Beis Gimel Daled.
Yeah, well, I don't. It's a gimel. Yeah, that's a gimel. All right. Yeah, gimel Daled.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Equals sheker.
Okay, it's not tied to here. I don't know why.
Time for that. Yeah.
No, it's not over here. Yeah. Okay, verse number 4.
Rabbi, question.
Yeah.
You, at the beginning, you said physical and spiritual. That's how we're supposed to live, right?
Yeah.
But
Taking the physical and fusing with the spiritual.
Yeah. Most Jewish people, when you talk to them, they only focus on the physical good deed, and they don't really believe in the spiritual side. And so where the good deed is the one who's gonna say me. If you do good deed and without, you don't know really what the reason you're doing to honor yourself or to show off yourself, or you don't have a credit for that before God, right? You didn't get
Say it again, I didn't understand.
Okay, so most of the Jews that are, getting in conversation with, they don't believe, most of them don't believe on the, spiritual side. They just be like, the good deed will be the...
Well, when you do a mitzvah, they'll say do a mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they do. Why? Because that's what we're here for. So they do say, they say it in a little different terminology. And they might not be as sophisticated as you are.
Oh, Baruch Hashem.
Okay, right, right. Right, they're not as sophisticated as you are. Right? But they kind of get it. Right? And be good, right? They have to do mitzvahs.
You make me sophisticated.
That's you gotta learn it.
Frankie, it's a work in progress.
It would be interesting. I happen to not be a wine connoisseur. I'm not. One wine, all wines, they all taste the same to me. They all spell distraction from God. It's just, right, they drink a little bit Friday night, they sanctify Shabbat, but they make it nice. It's funny. My parents probably were so, they probably drilled it into me like to stay away from liquor. So I just don't do it. My father-in-law, he's a connoisseur. He likes a good bottle of wine. That's my father-in-law. He'll be at the Shabbat. Maybe we always take out a nice bottle of wine for him because he appreciates. Actually, going through our wine cabinet till he finds a nice one that he likes, and that's what he drinks. But he's a connoisseur. Okay? And, just like we say snow. Eskimos that are experts in snow, how many words do they have for snow?
37.
I think 23. I don't know. 23, whatever. Like 20. I think 23 words for snow, slush, mush, ice. Right? Because it all depends on what it is, whether you're going to go out or you're going to die or not. And so you have to be very exact when it comes to snow, because they're experts in snow. We Jews are experts in mitzvahs. Right? That's our job. We're connoisseurs on the spiritual side of things. And that's our job. Right? To go ahead and to become connoisseurs, to go ahead and to become experts, right, in the spiritual world. Right? That's what mitzvahs are. Right? That's what we're here for. Right? We're here in this world as a way to go ahead and to create that connection with God. And that's what we thrive on. And that's what we're all about. Okay. Verse number 4. Okay. Kenny, want to read?
Sure. Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of the rulers would consort with the daughters of man who would bear to them. They were the mighty who from old were men of devastation.
Okay. Right, so what is it talking about? He's talking about, right, the group of giants, right, or rulers, right? Strong men that they went ahead and they continued this nonsense, right? But let's go back to verse number 4. There's a very interesting part of verse number 4. Read verse number 4 again.
The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward when the sons of the rulers would consort with the daughters of man, who would bear to them. They were the mighty, who from old were men of devastation.
Okay, what also afterwards of what?
It says also after 120 years.
What?
After the 120.
No. Begam acharechin. Now, what is this talking about? And also afterwards.
After they sinned?
Well, they were there later too. I mean,
later from
still,
when?
These are still the same group of people that showed up in Korach when they were not in Korach, in this week's parsha, when the spies go out and they see and they find the giants. This is the Nephilim. So
this is talking about. This is taking place now.
Many generations earlier.
Yeah, call it the year 1300, 1400, 1500. Right, Korach doesn't show up till right. So the spies is the year 2450. And so like 900 years, 1,000 years later. So what does it mean? And also afterwards, after of what?
After the flood.
Which flood?
Noah's flood?
Noah's flood hasn't happened yet. Noah's flood doesn't happen until
the other flood.
Till we get to the middle page.
The other flood.
Aha! Dun, 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 dun. Folks, listen up carefully. This is the first time you'll have heard it. Reporting live from data. Okay, what happened was when the people began during the time, the generation of man, was when people began to worship idols and to act inappropriately. And at that point in time, the God came and had the Yam Ukinas, otherwise known as the Atlantic Ocean, come and flood a third of the world. Okay, there was a flood that flooded a third of the world. And they still didn't learn from that flood. And they continued their evil behavior. And that's why eventually along comes the flood, Noah's flood that we all know about, and flooded the entire world. Right, so take a look. So just look at in verse 4, right, chapter 6, verse 4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards. What does it mean, also afterwards? After that flood that came and flooded a third of the world.
Now this is like a great big tidal wave coming out of the Atlantic Ocean, and it just floods the whole world, or a third of the world, and then recedes. So it wasn't very
No. I don't know. No, I'll tell you. One thought I had was, by the way, that might be where, like, the lost city of Atlantis.
Yes, that might be it.
Right, that it was from this flood, because the Mediterranean Sea. Right, I don't know if it was always there. I'm not sure. I don't know. And so it could be that, like, by the Atlantic, by Gibraltar, there's only a little tiny place that it spills over into the Mediterranean.
So you think Atlantis was in the Mediterranean?
So that's I think they found it, right?
They didn't find it, but they know there are some merged cities there.
The merged cities there. So I'm thinking that might be actually where some of the Atlantic came and flooded that whole area. And actually formed what studied the Mediterranean Sea.
Run up to maybe Russia and then...
No, it ran up to Israel. And then it came to Haifa, and then Hashem stopped it at Haifa.
Really?
Yeah.
So then Spain was flooded.
I don't know, or could be what's all in the Mediterranean today.
That's not a third of the world.
It depends where people were.
I see, because
that's what people were at that time.
I see. There was not a big population anywhere else.
Right.
That might be, Rabbi.
It may be. It's a thought.
I'll look into it.
Okay, thank you.
You'll just study on it.
Yeah. Let me know.
I'll let you know.
Let me know. Thank you. Right. So that's right. So that's where it comes. Right. And it flooded. Right. There was a flood that came and flooded a third of the world. That happened before the great flood of Noah, where the entire world was flooded. Right. That's what happens. Okay. Continue. Verse number 5.
Hashem saw that the wickedness of man was great upon the earth, and that every product of the thoughts of his heart was but evil ways. And Hashem considered having made man on earth, and he felt heartfelt sadness. And Hashem
Okay, stop. Okay. So it says here, Hashem reconsidered having made man on earth, and he had heartfelt sadness. Can I ask you a question? Did God not know that this was going to happen?
Yes, he did.
Right? God knows the future, right? So what does it mean he reconsidered?
Yeah, that's what is it?
Let me ask you another question. It says, and he had heartfelt sadness. Could God be sad?
No.
What do you mean he had heartfelt sadness? He can't have disappointment because he knew it was going to happen. Right? He created us. He knew the storyline. Right?
So people repented.
No. So what does it mean? So what does it mean, man, that God goes ahead and he reconsidered, and then he has heartfelt sadness, right? Those two things do not apply to God.
He made God sad.
What?
He made God sad.
Yeah, but God doesn't have emotions.
God doesn't have emotions.
But he has.
Why doesn't God have emotions? That's a human thing. God is not human.
Right.
So how come he has anger on us?
And he has anger on us.
It's a human language.
But it's human language.
So-
It's putting it together. I mean,
Putting what together? Putting the Torah together?
No.
No.
What we're using our language to interpret,
Understand that.
to understand.
Wait,
what God
doesn't
is
the
doing.
Torah say, "Vayinachem, vayitzatzev," become sad? God is writing that.
Well, when he says sadness, he says the jealous God, his emotions there. I understand.
Except there's one little problem with all that, sir. And that is that what? God is not human. He's not physical. And only physical human beings can have these emotions. God cannot have these emotions.
For us to understand that, he has to put it in a certain language.
Very good. Why?
Because so we can understand.
Very good. The answer is God doesn't have these emotions. We do. And hence God writes the Torah in the language that we can understand. And so therefore it uses human language, even though none of those emotions apply to God.
Still, it's not great. I mean, he's not feeling. It's not, whatever. It's not a good thing.
Right? No. It's not a good thing. It's saying God is disappointed, right? Right? God reconsiders having made man, right? It's because God is saying this is not working out the way I want it to.
No, he's not saying that at all. He's not saying it's not working out the way. He knew how it would work out.
Good.
And he set it up so it would work out that way.
That's the one
Because
way.
but you know,
No, we'll say
well,
it again.
he's in charge. He put it together.
He
All
does.
So he knows the future.
Right.
And it's like his plan. We're just living his plan.
Right.
Right? And so he's not saying, he's just saying that man, that from my point of view, man screwed up. All right? That's what he means when he's angry. He's saying, you guys have screwed up, but he can't say it.
No. He can't get
say-
angry
can't-
because angry only applies to us.
He's not angry. He's
Right.
just pointing. He's making a point. All right? That's what he's doing.
And what's his point?
His point is you screwed up.
Right.
Right?
No.
And you should be thinking about it.
And you should be upset that you got God to be angry.
Yes. No, then you should be upset. You should be upset that you didn't do the right thing. Because you could have.
Right. And so therefore, God speaks, the Torah speaks in the language of people, so we should be able to understand and relate and understand what we have done right and what we have done wrong. Okay, that's why the Torah goes ahead, and that's why the Torah is written.
But his emotions, as expressed in the Torah, are to emphasize how important it is to us that we recognize how severe the wrong was that we did.
Right.
So we will fix it.
Right.
And,
and not repeat it.
Because he knows we have lousy memories.
Right. That's why we have to read it every year, the entire Torah. And hopefully one day it will sink in. Maybe. And when they want to do something, they say, "Oh no, the people of Sodom did that. That wasn't good." And oh, that's a flood. Oh no, we're not going to do that. All the spies. Yeah, I remember something like that. This sounds familiar, right? And that's our job. Right? Our job is to learn.
So we had all these 3 times to correct the sins of the garden. We didn't do it.
Right.
Because we can't remember.
No. We
like
not we can't remember. We don't. Right. We stop thinking about it.
Well, we don't want to remember.
We don't want to remember. Why don't we want to remember?
Because it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
No, because we want to do what we want to do. We don't want somebody telling us what to do. Very simple.
That's the 800-pound gorilla, Rabbi.
On the end, it's me. Yes, sir.
So I have 3 questions, all related to each other.
Okay.
Since the Sodom and Gomorrah, this has never happened again in man's time.
Now what?
The destruction of the world, and we do the cleaning of the world.
The what?
Cleaning.
Through Sodom and Gomorrah?
No,
you had the splitting of the Red Sea?
Yeah, I mean...
You had the plagues in Egypt?
Okay, the second question is that... did God replace man with a new type of species?
When?
After the flood.
No.
Were we giants and became smaller?
No, so the giants got wiped out.
They got wiped out.
Man, the giants are gone.
They couldn't swim.
Where did the giants come from?
Where they came from, there was a race of people called giants.
From Adam time?
Yeah, sure.
Did they come from Adam?
Yeah.
No, they just say that the angel they have a intercourse with.
They're what?
The angel has an intercourse with the daughters of men. That's they both.
Well, it's a question, right? Who the Nephilim were, right? Right. It's a question who that is, right?
Okay, also, the third question is that is it true that today's time the people from Sodom and Gomorrah are coming back to this world? With all this nonsense we see with transgenders, gays, lesbians, whatever. I mean, I see some weird stuff.
No. The world is a confused place.
Very confused.
Very confused. And so when you live in a world that we do whatever I want to do, and what God wants doesn't matter. So people do all sorts of things.
That's what you get, is craziness.
Yeah.
I saw a man, I'm not trying to... I saw a man became a woman. He did whatever operation needs to be done and this and that. But what is so interesting, somehow, I don't know how, he grew chest, but he was going that way. I mean, completely opposite of the woman.
The whole thing is just
it's nasty stuff.
It's when you get away what Hashem wants. Okay, verse number 7. Isaac, you want to read?
And Hashem says, I will blot out man whom I created from the face of the earth, from man to animal, to creepy things, and to birds of the sky. For I have reconsidered my having made man, but Noah found grace in the eyes of Hashem.
Oh, finally someone who's able to rise up, right? And to do... there was one man, right, who went ahead and who found favor in God's eyes. Right? And here we're told the whole world is going to be destroyed except Noah.
So how come Hashem loved Noah? There was so much madness that time.
Right.
Why Noah?
Because Noah was righteous. It doesn't matter about the rest of the world. It matters about what we do.
But he chose only one person.
Because there was only one person
that chose.
No.
People.
No. There were 8 people in the world that got saved.
His wife.
Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and 3 daughters-in-law. In-law, daughters-in-law. What?
Didn't Noah have other kids that they ignored him? Didn't he have other?
No, because Noah had said held off from having children because he knew the flood was coming.
So Noah did know God. There was such thing as a God for Noah.
What do you mean? Did Noah know God? Yeah, Noah knew God.
He never became an idol worshiper.
No.
He never believed in a stone or birds or
No.
water or this and that.
No.
How did you know to carry on with what Abraham brought into?
He did. He was before Abraham. Abraham wasn't alive yet.
All right, never mind.
But I will tell you something interesting. Right? Noah was the 10th generation after Adam, right?
Yeah.
Right? How far apart was it between when Adam dies to Noah is born?
Adam dies and Noah is born.
Yeah.
I think it was the same time.
Same time.
160.
Not much time, right?
160 years.
There were 126 years between Adam dying and Noah being born.
And?
No, meaning that you go to Noah's children, right? No, Adam knew Noah's children. Excuse me, Noah knew Adam's children.
Wow.
Right? It's
Adam's parents,
right? I mean, there was only 126-year gap between Adam dying and Noah being born.
So Adam's kid messed up. So.
Yeah, it's actually the 3rd generation. Adam's grandchildren is where really the corruption started.
Too much. They lived too long.
No, well, that's one of the things that led into it. But they were the generation of men. That's where idolatry started.
There were the floods.
And that's when the flood came and flooded 1/3 of the world. And we're talking about happened during Adam's grandchildren's time.
It's such a short period of time, 10 generations, relatively
Yeah,
short
yeah.
period of time. Then they managed to bring the flood on them.
Yeah. No, there are 2 floods. We're talking about there was one flood that came, a flood came and flooded 1/3 of the world. And when mankind didn't learn from that flood, then came Noah's flood,
Big flood.
that we're about to learn, and came and flooded the entire world.
Now, the flood didn't start until Methuselah died, right?
Right.
Because you had to wait till Shiva for him,
Right.
and then the flood could come.
Right.
Because
Why?
there were 10
What?
righteous people.
Because no, Methuselah was number 9,
Methuselah and God is 10.
and God would be the 10th.
So he's got his wife, his 3 sons,
Right.
2 daughters.
3 daughter-in-laws. No daughters.
3 daughters-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 6, right?
What?
I can't add.
No, I think
That's no, 3 sons and 3 daughter-in-laws is 6. Noah and his wife is 8.
9 is Methuselah.
Methuselah and God would
10
be
is
10.
God.
Yeah.
Where it says, I have reconsidered my having made them. Is that another simile?
Again, same thing. We considered, and it's all using language that people can understand because the Torah was written for man. And it's written for us to understand it and understand how the world is supposed to be.
Now this flood,
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about next week.
But not next week, just starting now.
Oh, starting now.
They got time. We don't want to waste those 30
We
seconds.
can't wait.
Or 30
I
minutes.
understand. We can't murder time.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but this
We have
flood that
eternity
we're
to
gonna-
get.
we're gonna
30
be-
minutes times 9,600 is how much?
30 minutes times 90.
30,000.
No.
300,000.
300,000. 300,000 minus 40 times 30, which is 1,200. So it's 298,000. 298,000. 98,000.
You're wasting time.
Yeah, 880. I'm trying to synthesize it. How many mitzvahs we can get now? Almost 300,000 mitzvahs. Let's continue learning for 30 minutes.
Right, but what's the Hebrew?
And it's multiplied by everybody in the room, multiplied by everyone who's watching it. Right? So we're talking about, right?
numbers.
300,000, right? 600,000, 6 million, 60 million. Talking about it was 60 million, 70 million mitzvahs that we could accomplish in the next 30 minutes.
Whoa, you're an important guy.
And, right? Well, don't give that away. Right? That's right. That's what you're talking about. Just right, the ability just of learning
Now,
Torah.
the flood that we're going to be talking about, this is different than the first flood.
Yes.
This flood covered all the world.
Covered the entire world.
Wherever there were people.
Correct.
So the whole thing, like even the Grand Canyon.
Correct. It was flooded up.
The first flood, what's the difference in time between first and second flood?
The first flood was during the generation of man, which I would probably put around. Put around generation of man. I want to say 600-700. Hold on a second. It's Dor Enosh, so it's somewhere between 235 and 1140. I think probably around 600-700.
The time difference between these two, right?
No. So the time difference between the first one and the second one was almost 1,000 years. Because the second, the flood that everyone knows about, we know about both floods, right? But the flood that everyone knows about during Noah's times, that was in year 1656. 1656, 1656.
Do those add up to something to make something really great?
Probably.
That happened, this happened, you don't know anything else.
Right.
So the first flood's supposed to be a warning. But it didn't
Yes,
work.
it didn't work.
So,
Why didn't we listen to it?
Because you're only man.
What?
We're only man.
That's right. We're too busy having a good time.
You know, the basis of geology is a theory of uniformitarianism. Did you ever hear of that theory? That all the processes that work today were worked in the past at the same rate.
Right, and nothing
But
has
that's
changed.
not- but that-
That's not true.
That's not necessarily true.
Correct.
That's what you're telling us.
Oh, absolutely.
So the Grand Canyon could have been created by this huge mass of water suddenly washing off the land
Correct.
instead of taking 10 million years to do it.
Correct.
Oh, I like this theory.
No, actually, it makes it
I mean, we have no problem saying it was created 10 million years ago. That doesn't bother me either.
No,
But I'm just saying that's all nice. Maybe yeah, maybe no.
Yeah, but there's no sloughing off of the canyon walls. You ever look at the Grand Canyon? There's not enough sloughing off to justify being 10 million years old.
No.
It would be flat by now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not uniform enough, that you're saying, yeah.
I mean, it's not flat enough. It's just walls are sheer. You know, and you know, if you follow the logic of the science, if it was that old, much of those walls would have been sloughed off like this. It would be like a little
Bowl or something?
It would be like a little bowl. It wouldn't be down like this. So it had to be some fast-moving water that would
The
create.
logic of the science is different from the wonder of God. So.
Alrighty. Page 31.
I'm sorry. to
Folks,
digress.
everyone, hold on.
Forgive
We
me.
just finished Parshas Bereishis. Everyone give yourself a nice round of applause. Alrighty, 28 weeks and we made it. Whoa. Okay, we are cruising along over here.
Explain Baggett and Shem.
We said it before, but it's not tied over here.
It's not tied to this?
No.
How did I get it in here?
I don't know. Page 31. Okay. Chapter 6.
Yes.
Verse number 9.
Yes.
Okay. Scott, you want to read?
Sure. These are the offspring of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. Noah had begotten 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, good. Tell me, there's a problem with verse number 1. Read verse number 1 again.
These are
the offspring of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. Noah had begotten 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
What's the problem? Walk with God. Okay, good. There's one question, but there's a.
Noah was righteous up to a point, but it was consistent with the generation in which he lived. He was righteous for that generation, but if he lived later with Abraham, he would have been not so righteous.
You know, I appreciate you talking down about Noah.
No, it doesn't talk down about him. He's a good guy. He was righteous. He was a righteous man, but you know everything is.
Does the Torah call Noah righteous?
Pardon me?
Does the Torah call Noah righteous?
Yes.
Then why are you making stories up?
It says righteous within his generation.
Okay, good.
So,
Or should I tell you something? Should I tell you something really more scary? like really scary.
He doesn't say righteous within his generation.
It does.
He says righteous without stipulation,
But
and he's perfect
in generation.
Right. But he was righteous in his own standing, not compared to the other slobs there. Right?
Well, no, that's exactly what he was compared to. He was compared to the
his
people in
father.
his generation.
Perfect in his generation.
Perfect in his generation, but he stands alone as a
Perfection
righteous
is
man.
relative.
Okay, so I'm glad we have two great scholars here, Mark and Kenny, arguing this out.
And
The
we're
Talmud.
both
No.
The camera to them.
Oh yeah. The Talmud actually has two opinions, Rav and Shmuel. I mean, it's great. It's like Gavaldi. Each arguing your point. All right, who's Rav and who's Shmuel? So you can go home tonight and you can tell your wives, I was the Talmudic scholar, and I was saying their argument.
So what are the arguments?
Okay, so first of all, I first want to just backtrack for a second. If you had to write verse 9 and 10, okay, if you had to write verse 9 and 10, how would you write verse 9 and 10?
There's something weird about the kids. They're like twice. They're mentioned twice. Or maybe I just don't. I'm not very good at reading comprehension, but it just seems like it's the offspring of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. Noah had begotten 3 sons. These are the offspring. It just seems like it's.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Am I onto something?
No, you're onto something. You're getting warm. You're getting warm.
Okay, good.
You're getting warm.
Good. That's what I got right now.
If you had to write this, how would you write this
I
verse?
would start off with Noah was a righteous man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have to use three sons? You have to mention that?
Well, let me ask you a question. When you
It's
write,
disjointed.
let me ask you a question. These are the offsprings of Noah. If I was to say these are the offsprings of
Like it's
Bentzi,
unnecessary.
no. If I was to say these are the offsprings of Bentzi,
Then you mention.
then
the
you
offspring.
mention my children:
Yes.
Yeah.
Tova, Binyamin, Brachaleah, Ahuva, Shani, Yehudas, Chayrezi, Chaim Zev. Right? You write. You would go. Right? You would name them all, and yet here the Torah doesn't do it that way. It says these are the offsprings of Noah. Oh, by the way, Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God. Noah had begotten 3 sons.
Maybe you forgot the quote.
I know.
Am I right? You understand the problem with this
It's
verse?
disjointed.
It's disjointed. It means you should have said these are his offsprings. Mention his offsprings. What is it? It says these are his offspring. Then it talks about how wonderful a guy Noah was. Go ahead.
I
think it's to
disagree. I
show-
think it's in right order.
I think it's to show that these are not sons like the other brothers that died that were in corruption because they were born out of Noah's righteousness. In other words, they weren't like the other evil people.
Interesting. But Noah didn't have any other children, right? Noah only had these
There's
3.
3 sons.
So what I would say is as follows.
Who helped them build the ark.
Yeah, what I would say is as follows. These are the offspring. When we say somebody has offsprings, how do we generally tend to look at that? We look at it very linear. Right? What are your children's names? Tell me who your children are. What we tend to forget is that sometimes our greatest offsprings are not necessarily our children, but it's what we leave behind and what we do.
So he didn't begot them?
So says the Torah, these are the offsprings of Noah. What did Noah leave behind?
His righteousness.
Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God. What did Noah leave behind in the world?
His 3 children.
No!
His righteousness.
His righteousness.
I'm halfway there.
Halfway there.
Because he was righteous, he passed it on to them.
Because he was righteous, that he left his righteous deeds in the world.
Yeah, like he showed them. Like otherwise, if he was a bad guy, maybe they would.
He was a righteous man.
Okay.
Okay? He was a righteous man.
And that's the quality he passed on to his children.
And that was his forget about his children.
Right.
That was his offspring.
His righteousness.
His righteousness. Man, he left behind the world a trail of righteousness.
Just as he might, it could be said that he begat kid 1 and 2 and 3. It also he begat righteousness.
Right. not only begat righteousness,
That's his
I want to
legacy.
explain to you
It
something.
was like on top of it.
If there was no Noah, the whole world would have ceased to exist.
Say it again.
If there was no Noah,
Uh-huh.
the world would cease to exist.
Never would have survived.
Right? To understand that, right? There was one man who saved the world. And what was his name?
Noah.
Noah.
It's good or
What
bad?
was his offspring?
No, so that's incredible. But that's what he did. He saved the world.
One human being.
One human being, he saved the world. If there was no Noah, the world, we would have disappeared. Now,
But he is a precursor. He's a precursor of Abraham.
right.
So his knowledge of Torah was not as great.
No, hold on.
He didn't have Torah.
No. He didn't have Torah?
Sure, yes.
Can I ask you a question? What did God tell Noah to take on his boat? The animals. How many animals did God tell Noah to take on a boat?
Two of everything.
Two of everything, except kosher
Oh,
animals. He had to take on 7 pairs of kosher animals.
How do you know?
How do you know which animals were kosher, which animals were not kosher?
Because he knew Torah.
Dum. You see, he learned Torah. Right?
That's a good proof.
You see, he learned Torah. Very clear.
Very clear.
Right? Okay. So we're going to get to why Noah isn't considered like Abraham. Yeah.
When we talk about Noah's law,
Yeah.
is this a law that he wrote?
The 7 Noahide laws?
Uh-huh.
No. The 7 Noahide laws actually is a bit of a misnomer because of the 7 Noahide laws that the entire world was charged with keeping. 6 of them were given to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
So he passed it on to other people?
They passed it on to the entire world. Everyone knew the 6 basic laws of society. The reason we call them the 7 Noahide laws
One Adam.
is because Noah, in Noah's time, he added one law. What was that law?
Not to eat from the...
Can't eat a limb from a live animal.
Okay.
And so therefore, since he came up, he got the 7th one, so therefore we call them the 7 Noahide laws.
Okay, so when he says that he was perfect in his generation, that means he only followed the 7 Noah's law?
Perfect, that's what it means.
He only
He was perfect.
Did he keep
between the
Shabbos?
7th law?
What?
Or just by keeping the 7th law? It was
No, what
perfect.
he's asking, did he keep Shabbos?
Did Noah keep Shabbos? Yeah, Noah kept Shabbos.
Okay. So he kept the 10th.
He was not obligated to keep Shabbos. He kept it.
Yeah.
He was obligated to keep the 7 Noahide laws. Okay, right? He was obligated to keep the 7 Noahide laws. Right? The whole world was obligated. There was not a choice.
But he kept all the 600.
And the world did not do that, and hence the world was destroyed. Right?
So-
The world didn't listen to God's rules.
Okay, so he was a good one. How
Yes.
about the 9 other one? How were they?
The who?
So his wife.
She was righteous.
Why?
Why was she righteous?
I mean,
Because you should be
Noah
righteous,
was
right?
chosen.
No.
She was Shomer Shabbat, right?
Yeah, what do you mean? Noah was chosen by who?
By God.
No, Noah was chosen by God because he was righteous.
He found favor on Noah.
Because he kept the commandments. Let's say 20 other people would have found favor in God's eyes.
Probably the one that destroyed the world.
There would have been no flood.
Well, one extra, right? They would have.
And actually, if they had one extra, there still wouldn't have been a flood. There are 9 people, righteous people in the world would not have been destroyed.
So
Imagine
that
that.
means that Noah teach the other ones to be good.
Yes, and he tried teaching everybody else, and everyone else
And he
just...
did a good job
At his kids, at least. At his 3 kids and daughter-in-laws and wife.
Is that what the man's supposed to do?
Yeah, we have to teach everybody. We have to be an example to everybody.
So when you're driving for Uber, you give them a little lecture.
I understand.
It's a mitzvah to teach them.
Alrighty, so let's go back to verse number 9. So these are the offsprings of Noah. So what do we learn? These are the offsprings of Noah. So what's the first thing we learn?
Righteousness.
The offspring is that righteousness, right? Our actions of righteousness are also considered offsprings. Noah was a righteous man, right? Right? Now again, the Torah calls him righteous, so what does that mean? He was righteous. And all of a sudden, Kenny's jumping up and saying, no, because this is perfect in his generation. In his generation, he was righteous. But in somebody else's generation, he would not have been righteous.
Well, he might have been righteous.
Now, and Mark said, what are you talking about? God says Noah was a righteous man. Right? Why are you picking on poor Noah? Right?
Yeah.
And so that always bothered me. It always bothered me. How could somebody, right? And we said your argument was an argument of the sages of the Talmud.
Someone could be righteous and not perfect, but someone cannot be perfect and not righteous.
No.
Okay, it's interesting because I'm not sure exactly, right? What does it mean, perfect? Right? The Hebrew word is tamid. Right? Who else is called a tam? Who else is called perfect?
Moses.
He's not. He's interesting. It's not. Who's called a tam?
Abraham?
No. Naga. What does it say? Oh.
What did you say, Bentzi? What did you say?
So the answer is Jacob is called an ish tam.
Ish tam, wow.
Which means wholesome. But I'm going to tell you the one question. The Torah calls him righteous. So why did the sages say only in his generation? Right? What's the question of why can it not be that he really was righteous? Just straight up righteous, what the Torah says.
Well, before the covenant of the parts. He's not Jewish.
Right.
So, but he's as righteous as you can be. He knew Torah, he kept Shabbos, he kept all the mitzvot.
Right.
And God spoke to him. That's a pretty righteous guy.
Right, he's a prophet, good.
No.
And he acted on what God told him. I mean, it took him a long time to build the ark.
Sure.
And he had to do it with his own hands, with the sons working there day and night.
Right.
That's a hard job.
Correct.
So it showed that he had emunah. He was steadfast.
No, can I say something?
Sure. You can say whatever you want, Michael. It'll be intimidating.
Basically, it's saying that the world was so bad.
Yeah.
That in such a badness, there was only one thing good. And
No, but he said the Torah calls Noah righteous. Why does anyone say anything other than that?
He's perfect in his generation.
Perfect. So I know how I would learn that. Perfect in his generation means that he was perfect in his generation. In his generation, when the entire world was so corrupt, and he still was perfect.
Well, he wasn't negatively impacted by the externals. He was so good.
Right, he was so good. That's how I would explain it.
Okay.
Me and Mark are on the same page.
Oh, no.
Right? You understand?
Yeah.
And so where the heck does Kenny, what he's saying, right? How could this say, and it's a sage, so that means that he's right. Right? He's a sage, so he's right. What's the question that makes what me and Mark saying, what's the big question that makes it that there's got to be another idea?
In his generation.
No. As I told you could understand in his generation. Even in his generation, when the whole world was corrupt, he still remained
perfectly right.
Right.
Yeah, but the scripture I had over here.
Yeah.
He said, perfect in his generation, and then he said, Noah walked. You know, what it means to be walk with God.
Yeah.
That's the...
Walk with God. I hope they said it about me. Right? Can you imagine say he walked with God?
Right.
He was right. We were partners in what we did. Walk with God. That's a pretty impressive thing too.
Right. That's explain the question we're dealing with.
So
he was righteous and he walked with God.
Right. So, but it's a walking with God.
You can be righteous, but you didn't walk with God. You find your money somewhere and you do good deed and better, for the other purpose,
But walking with God is a pretty impressive thing.
Uh-huh.
So let me tell you the question that gives backing to what Kenny's saying. If Noah was righteous, truly righteous, how could there be a flood in his generation?
Because he would have been like Abraham. He would have converted the world.
You can't be righteous and have an event like a flood that wipes out the entire world in your generation. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So
you cannot be righteous and have a flood that wipes out the entire world.
So
but he was saved.
No, he should have saved.
He was. Thank you.
But he didn't.
What about the world?
He didn't do anything.
How could you be righteous and not save the world?
All he had to do was save
that
one more
generation.
person.
He was the one who made the difference in that generation.
So why didn't he save the world if he was righteous? Like Mark and I are reading it, right? Then at that point in time, the big question mark, according to that opinion, is so then how could a flood that wipes out the entire world happen?
Because you need a righteous man to save the world. Because if he wasn't righteous, there wouldn't be a world. If it didn't happen in his generation, God would have to wait for another righteous man to save the world.
Right. But there has to be, if you are righteous, you have to have an influence on your generation.
Oh yes.
And if you don't, that means there's an issue with you.
And all he had to do was save one more person.
No.
And at the end of the day, that's all he had to do.
Yeah.
But Rabbi, he.
What's up? Frankie had a question.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Robert, okay. This is clear. When they go to spoke to Noah that to make the ark, and then when he's working, the other people asking a question, and then he prophesied, right? Tell them, it's a time you gotta change. You say you might be out of your mind, Noah. You see that?
Right.
Okay, it's not his fault. You say he should influence the whole community, right? And then God give them that chance through him. He was preaching and said, okay, this is gonna happen. Change your mind, turn your heart. Change your heart. And but people he did his part. He influenced, but they didn't take it.
If you're righteous, there can't be a flood in the world.
Okay, so you're the rabbi.
You can't have an entire world go ahead and be destroyed.
He could have saved all of humanity. By
You have to, if you being part of being righteous is worrying about the world, and that's the challenge. But if he was righteous, why was the world not saved?
So, can I answer that?
Yes.
He followed God's command.
Right.
So basically, he knew that things were going bad, and Hashem somehow talked to him, and he only followed God's command.
Right.
But if he had prayed, this would have been a different outcome.
I'm not sure.
I mean, Moses prayed 515 times. Did he even pray one time?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
I see what you're saying.
Now let me show you something else.
Okay.
Noah walked with God.
Right.
What does it say about Abraham?
God's friend. God's friend.
Walked ahead of God.
Oh. It says by Abraham, Abraham walked in front of God.
Yeah, he understood what was going to be.
Okay?
He had insight.
What's the difference between walking in front of God and walking with God?
I would think the first one means you're walking too fast because you're pretending you're God because you're ahead of him. So I wouldn't think that would be good, but then again, obviously it is. So
Yeah. Okay, so now if that's not the right answer, so now tell me another answer. What does it mean?
I think that he had
See,
trust.
Moses was insightful enough to understand that you save human beings rather than building an ark. Moses was all about being hospitable to his guests and teaching Torah to them.
Moses or Abraham?
Abraham, I'm sorry.
Right? Okay.
I'm wrong generation. Abraham. That was Abraham's thing. He was just a very good host. He loved to entertain people, and he loved to teach Torah.
He loved to entertain people. That was the right thing to do.
Yeah, that was the right thing. So he's saving people. He's saving
It could be he
souls.
hated doing it, by the way.
What's that? He didn't hate it. He loved it.
How do you know? I'm not saying it doesn't make a
He wouldn't
difference.
do it if he didn't love it. He was too good at it.
Hold on. What are you talking about? Did God want him to do it?
Yes.
Okay, so if it makes a difference, you don't like it or don't like it. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, but it's okay if you love what God wants you to do.
Yeah, then that's okay.
I mean, we all have a mission, right?
Right. So I'm just saying.
Mission, some don't like it.
Right. So I'm just telling you, so it's irrelevant whether you liked it or not.
It was. It's irrelevant, but it's okay to love your mission.
Yes. So what happens is like this.
I'm done.
Don't listen to the rabbi. That's
okay. Noah walked in front of God.
No, Avram.
Avram walked in front of God.
Yes.
Noah walked with God.
So Abraham had higher standing.
So right, and because what would to me the difference would be when you walk with God, it means you say, God, okay, God, show me that this is firm. I'll walk with you. You take a step, I'll take a step with you.
Yeah.
What does it mean when you walk in front of God?
Blind faith kind of thing.
Not blind faith. Okay,
Wait,
right.
Okay, that's right.
That means trusting in God, saying, God, if this is where you want me to go, I'm going. I don't need you to hold my hand each step of the way to take me, and I'll walk with you. You know, I'll give you an example. Let's look at this example. Look, great example. I had a student, and he says, Rabbi, what do you want from me? I said, we're gonna change the world. I said, right, we're gonna teach Torah to the entire world. He says, Rabbi, when you say charge, you expect me to run out ahead of you and like to go through that brick wall for you? I said, not for me, for God. Right? I said, a general gets in front. He says, Rabbi, I'm not general material. Bust me to private.
That's how I feel.
I'll go after the general goes, like, then I'll follow him.
Yeah.
Right?
Tell me what to do.
No. I'll be right. I'll be right behind
Right
you.
there.
Right, or I'll go with you.
Yeah.
Right. Right. That's where. Like that's how you go ahead and that's the difference between walking with God and walking in front of God. Abraham didn't say to God, "Okay, God, I'll walk with you. I got your back. I'll be your flank man, but you got to be there with me."
Like a cheerleader. Kind
of in any which way, right? With a cheerleader, right? Abraham walks in front of God. He says, God, I know this is where you want me to go. I'm right behind you. I'm right ahead of you. I'm running along at fast at my own pace. I know that's the way to go.
So he anticipated what God wanted.
Not anticipated what God wanted to do, and he did it. He didn't need God to be there walking with him and taking him along each step along the way. Noah walked with God.
Which is pretty good standing by itself.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing.
Definitely.
But now...
That would work for me.
Now, okay. So now let me ask you a question. So Noah was righteous in his generation. Now, is that better than Abraham or worse than Abraham?
That's hard.
Because we said if he would have been in Abraham's generation, so we would have been like everybody else. I mean, there was a lot of righteous people. It wouldn't have been anything special. So who's more righteous? Noah or Abraham?
Neither.
Everybody wins.
Abraham.
They both tied.
It's all relevant.
It depends on what was given to him, right?
Well, let me ask you a question. If you're surrounded by righteous people, you're more
Likely
likely to be righteous because everyone's righteous. I'll be righteous with them. It's easy. When nobody's righteous, and you stand up to the whole world and say, you guys are Meshugana, we got to listen to God. Right? That takes guts.
Yeah.
Which one is harder?
Number one.
I think number one.
Yeah.
I think Noah being righteous in a generation full of wicked people is much harder than being righteous in a generation where they're righteous people.
They were much more wicked in his generation.
Right?
Yeah, much more.
Right? So now becomes a fascinating question.
Yeah.
So it says, Noah was a righteous man. Noah was a righteous man. Was he greater than Abraham?
Oh, that's not fair.
Or worse than Abraham?
No, that's not fair.
No, I have an answer for this one. Every generation has its own righteousness.
Good, I agree with that.
And we are not going to finish Until we get to Mashiach.
But if Noah lived in Abraham's generation, he would have been as righteous as,
or maybe even more,
as righteous, at least as righteous as the majority, but not the same.
Or he would have been even more than them. Because if he did so well in a generation of wicked people, when he be around a generation of righteous people, how much more righteous would he have been?
But would he have been more righteous than Abraham? Probably not.
No, probably not. If during a time of complete lawlessness and disregard of anything that God does, he's righteous. Could you imagine how he would have gotten a generation where there were righteous people?
But would he have changed? Would he have gone out and tried to convince other people who weren't righteous to be righteous?
He might have been a co-equal person with Abraham.
It's very fascinating. So when it says Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation, there are two very fundamental ways to look at this. And now, who's right, you or Mark? Answers, you're both right.
Yeah. Each got a rabbi on your side.
Right, each got a rabbi on your side. So you're right? Right, but right to understand means that everyone agrees it was amazing what he did in his generation. Everyone agrees that Noah and Abraham was greater. Abraham walked in front of God. Noah walked in back with God, but not in front of him.
Yeah, but if he had lived in Abraham's
But the question would he lived in Abraham's generation, right? Certainly how righteous he would have been.
Yeah. He might also
and so remember and remember the one big question why I certainly understood like Mark. And Rashi brings it down, right? Rabbi Shmuel. There's a famous Rashi, right? Rabbi Shmuel that one says this, but one says the other way. And I always, and to me always was what Mark is saying. Why does the other sage take it out from its simple explanation? Why is he twisting something that's so clear?
But one doesn't distract from the other. I mean, if he's as righteous, if he's a very righteous person in his own generation,
right,
and he would be a very righteous person in Abraham's generation, that doesn't detract from the other.
You know, but the answer it says no, wasn't such a great guy, and so therefore, right? What's the whole? Why are we taking that away from him?
Taking what away from who?
Why are we taking away from Noah?
And giving him a qualified.
And giving a qualified righteousness. It's a righteousness. He won the record, but there's that little yellow star next, the asterisk, and the bottom in his generation, right?
Roger Maris's home run record with
right. And the answer is very simple. The answer is because if he was completely righteous, there couldn't have been a flood in his generation.
Because you would have gotten one other person, is that what you're saying?
No. It means a righteous person is somebody who takes responsibility for his generation. Right? What breeds greatness and righteousness is
Rabbi,
responsibility.
I got a problem
if
with
he
that.
wasn't, if he didn't help with the ark, do the ark, God would have needed another righteous person to do it. So you could say the same thing for the next guy.
God didn't need nothing. Let me ask a question. Could God have not taken a hydrogen bomb and just wiped out everything that he wanted to wipe out?
But he didn't want to wipe out man.
Well, why not?
He saw hope. He saw what was coming.
because it was one man who was righteous. I mean, God has many things on his control stick.
Right.
He's got earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis,
Democrats,
floods, Republicans. He got everybody on his stick, right? Right, he could go ahead and he has so many things on his stick that he could go and he could do this stuff. He has right to destroy the world. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. Right? And what's our job? Right? It's our job is to be righteous. Our job is to be like Abraham. And Abraham was righteous enough, there was no flood in his time. Right? And that's our job. Our job is to influence the world. And how do we influence the world?
By reflecting.
By reflecting God.
By reflecting
right?
God.
Yeah.
So that's my point there. Okay, does Noah, his behavior in that community, that time, in that generation, does reflect God's image? Yes, right? And then, so he was called as a prophet in that generation and work with God.
Yeah.
And he showed all the good example and do whatever it takes to working with God, always reflect the image of God.
Right.
So now that generation, we are living in a failing world and corrupted at that time, and they choose to not to copy just a copy wasn't Noah, because he did what he's supposed to do. That's why he was
he did what he was supposed to do.
Right.
He did what he was supposed to do, but he didn't. He had to do a little more that he didn't do.
Okay, Rabbi, when you go to what is we can say now, so some area over there, and then you, Rabbi Bentzi, Rabbi Epstein, you kosher, wicked kosher, you go observe the Shabbat, and the people look at you. What's wrong with him? Is he crazy? And you just did you reflect the image of God? Did you do the right thing? You did. Now they didn't take it. Okay.
But if I just take care of myself and I don't make other people around me righteous, that's a problem.
Yeah, but you inspire people by example. You don't be like, hey, look at me and how righteous I am.
Right, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
so
you keep going, like, I don't know this from experience because I'm not there, but usually when people around me do a lot better than I tend to do with things, I go, oh, wow, I want to do that.
Okay, how long did it take to Noah to build the ark? That was
it was 120 years.
Exactly. People walk around. That was opportunity. He did. He influenced people, but they didn't take it.
But when a room full
but again, the answer is he tried, but has responsibility means he could have done better.
Imagine when people walk around and we're building a big ark.
No. The answer is we need to do as best as we can.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is. Alrighty, folks, we're going to stop here. Everyone have a wonderful evening. We'll see you all same bad time, same bad station.
That's right.